This interview was originally uploaded on my main channel on November 2022, but I decided to edit it a little and then re-upload it here in celebration of the 20th anniversary of God of War, which was just a couple of weeks ago. Huge thank you to Danielle for chatting to me. She is 10 out of 10 wonderful. And as always, thanks to the supporters on Patreon who support this channel. Enjoy.
For anyone who doesn't know you, who are you?
Well, my name is Danielle Bisutti. I've been kicking around this town for quite some time, doing some TV, doing some film, and recently, actually back in 2014, got a very special audition to do an interactive video game. And at that time, I had no idea what that meant. You know the story, right?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone does.
I'll tell it again.
I'll give the Cliff's Notes because it's like, all right, we've heard it, Danielle. All I thought of was Avatar or Gollum. I'm like, yeah, the dots on the face and the suit. That's cool.
You're partway there.
Yeah, I was like partway there
Get out of
at Joe. That's really cool. And I love these universes, like growing up, like watching like fantasy and sci-fi. I was like, thinking I was a fairy and everything. I'm like, yeah, I can embrace this. Got the audition, got the sides. It was very like Shakespearean soliloquy, like Queen, like Lady Macbeth meets like Khaleesi, Lady Stark. I was like, yes. And God smiled on me that day because I got cast as Freya in God of War. And I'm being very sincere. Like it has been an absolute game changer in my life for many reasons, not just to be in one of the most celebrated video games for obvious reasons. It's just really a masterpiece. It's a piece of art. But
it's fine.
We're kind of fans.
All this God of War shit that I have everywhere. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. Danielle doesn't like Sony Santa Monica. She never mentions them in a tweet.
Never.
I'm like, oh my God. Like now they know why I got cast as Freya. Cause like when I like love you and you're in my life, like it's a lot. Like I'm Italian. So like my ability to love is pretty big.
That makes sense. It suits the character.
I think Corey somehow got a sense that I was right for her because as I've been playing her all these years, it feels like my life has been lockstep with her. Like there's a simpatico sort of synergy that's happened in my personal life where I've been able to channel into what the brilliant writers have written for her. And it's been a real blessing.
The time somebody killed your son.
There's that time where I offered my life to my imaginary son and he almost
You got locked in LA for a while.
I did.
It was crazy.
I was quarantined.
Technically, that one's correct. Yeah.
I was relegated in Midgard, although it was Brentwood. Is a little nicer, well, kind of nicer than Midgard, but still kind of shitty during that time.
Yeah, it was a lot. But directly related to that, I'd love to ask, so you didn't really have a grasp of what video game acting was. Was there anything about jumping into that you just totally didn't expect, or like something that, like a memory that really stood out to you as a unique challenge that's really specific to video games?
That's a great question. You should do this for a living.
I wrote it myself.
Look at this lady. I had never done a voiceover prior to that.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, I take that back. There was one voiceover that I got, and I am actually allowed to say this because they gave me credit. I am sometimes the voice double for Elsa.
No way.
Disney's Elsa.
Whoa.
I've been doing it since 2010.
Whoa.
I wasn't allowed to say anything.
What does a voice double mean?
Well, for example, in the video game Dreamlight Valley, I voiced her. So they're not always like Idina's like off on Broadway being fabulous. They're like, let's call in the Joe Bag of Donuts version, the poor man's version of Idina. Aww. But you know what? I'll tell you what, being able to be Elsa and Freya in a lifetime is just like, so I had just done that. And that was a really beautiful gift. But this was like interactive. So performance capture, right? And I sometimes will be on Twitter and say, actually, this is full performance capture. And it's okay to say voice acting because there are elements to God of War, both games where we were in the booth. And especially a lot of the times when you're just like traversing a mountain or walking through, a door. Like,
they need you to just grunt a bunch in a room.
And sometimes it's expositional. And I was nervous about a lot of that because some of the exposition was very touching, like learning about Calliope and talking about my background, my backstory. So in the booth and also being a singer and having that in my background didn't feel very, I don't know if intimidating is the word. It felt like a natural extension of what I had known. The thing that's a disadvantage, of course, in the booth is that you're not here with a person. Like the energy we have here is so much different than when we're on a Zoom, is so much different than when I'm in the booth. And God love you, Matt Sophos. You do a great Kratos, but you are he's not Chris Judge.
I'm like, here is Kratos now.
I just love Matt. And we would laugh about Matt is Brock. Matt could be Mimir. Matt was like Sunny. I mean, he would. So it was like, all right, I've got to. I mean, look, I studied the theater, which Chris Judge always gives me a hard time about, and I always say that, so he knows. Yes, he always would be like, oh, the theater actress. I'm like, but you know what? I got to like understand a character from like on a cellular level. Yeah. That worked for me. I'm not saying people that aren't in the theater can't do that, but like voice and movement class, how does the character move? Voice class, where does their voice sit? Like based on their past, like let me understand. They're not all going to walk and sound like me when you're building a character from the inside out.
When you're in a VO booth, do you feel like you are positioning, like, is your posture a conscious decision when you're giving a performance as well? Like, are you 100%. Like, you're still trying to stand like the character?
100%.
It's your whole body going through that.
Oh yeah. And in fact, so if I do a character that's like sort of a formidable, like CEO, I have to be in like high heels and they'll be like, Danielle, the coverage isn't on you. Like, I'm like, no, you don't understand.
That makes sense.
I need to be in this body position to feel her.
Interesting.
So Freya, obviously I was like flats and always like in like, you know, stretchy pants because I was like moving a lot, you know, as Freya does. But yeah, so the VO booth for me was a lot of like when you're, you know, on a blank stage and you're sort of in this vacuum and you have to sort of create visually what you're seeing, sonically what you're hearing, like, and it feels a little bit like magic. It's almost like on a porous level, you're like sort of absorbing the energy, but also creating that world. That's what it's like for me. And thank God I had someone like Matt Sophos who, albeit wasn't all of these characters, but understood these characters so deeply. He knew how to give me those lines. So whereas sometimes I wouldn't hear Chris's voice, I heard Chris's voice. And we've been doing it so long where
you could hear Chris's voice.
I know it, because we know these characters now. We're so integrated. Now, performance capture is a different thing, right? Because it's a lot of technology and like computers, like on your person. It seems
uncomfortable.
It can be after a while. Like there were times where I just had to take that helmet off because I could feel the compression in my spine. It was no joke. I mean, Sony's very sensitive about all that. Yeah. You know, you take the pack off, you know, 15, 20 minute break, take the pack off, take the helmet off. And I would always have to like roll down and stretch out my vertebrae and I would hear it go because it was like, another thing that's a little bit challenging about it is the horn lock. We call it horn locking. At least I did. So you've got the helmet and you've got the camera and it like arcs around like this to get all of your expressions. Which by the way, that doesn't look good on anybody. Like there are moments when I would be like,
nobody wants a camera down here.
You don't, and it's down here, and
except
it's
for like my dad on Facebook. Oh, every picture he has is that angle, and he's going. Papa. I'm like, he's a handsome man. Why,
Daddy? Why?
He just doesn't know any better.
Yeah, it's like, you gotta get the. But anyway, so sometimes we have these monitors, right? And like every now and then we're like walking around, but it's just like this head moving, and it's really weird, and it's like really obscured. But that's not the point. The point is that sometimes like I'd want to hug Atreus, or like there was a moment where like Kratos and I would get closer. I'd be like, you know, I know you're a god, not from these realms, but I know it. And I'd have to get close to him, but we'd have to make sure that our horns wouldn't lock. And there were times we would get stuck. That I would say is probably the most challenging thing about the costume, as it were.
Yeah, I guess you have to be more aware of this thing you have sticking out of your head. Is that something that took you a while to get over, or was it easy to jump into? Like you have all these dots on your face, you have to wear a really specific outfit. You can't wear the character's outfit, obviously. And you're on a stage with a bunch of technology around you. That's a very different experience from theater.
Yes, you're right. And I think I would attribute it to my skills in theater to be able to imagine all of that away and see Kratos and feel Freya's outfit or the sword on my back or whatever it was. But it was an adjustment period. Clearly it was. I mean, and I'm trying to even remember if I could remember the first time first of all, the Velcro is not comfortable. You're constant, like when you have to pee, it's not pleasant. I mean, you got to take it down, the Velcro's sticking, you got to pee. And then, it's just like a deal. It's a deal, but you get over it. I'm trying to think of that first time on the volume where I had that on my person. I think I probably was like, oh damn, this is a whole new thing. But after a while you get used to it. And I was able to, almost like it dematerialized. And I just felt like we became, and we talk about this a lot, Chris and I, there was such a reverence for the game. Yeah. Like it was bigger than all of us. It really was. And it was like, I don't know how it happened. Like really the gods of war were smiling because we walked into the volume, and once we were in that zone and Dory had the no-cut camera, and it was like everyone was like holding their breath.
Yeah.
So lovely.
How did you feel like leading up to release of Ragnarok? What was that few weeks like?
Oh, so exciting.
Because you worked on it for years?
Yeah. Well,
God of War since 2014, you said?
2014, God of War, and then to 2018, and then Ragnarok started 2019, and just about the same amount of time.
Well done.
Little things that you just want to share. You just can't wait. Like I did this really silly, you should see me in a crown video, and please don't tell me.
I saw
my friend's like, you have to. Someone's like, it's either going to hit or miss. But I was like, you know what? I was really feeling Freya's empowerment. I was like, you know what? No apologies, guys. Like, I earned it. I got it back. I got the wings. I got my crown. I got my title. But it's not, Freya's not a boastful person. It wasn't about like flexing. It was like the soul of who she was had returned, and I could finally breathe that in. So like when I heard Billie Eilish's "You Should See Me in a Crown," I'm like, that feels like a Freya song. We'll just do a little selfie video.
Yeah, I respect that. Yeah. But yeah, what was the anticipation of it actually coming out like, and how has it been since?
Well, the anticipation was, huge, mainly because I knew what the story was, and I really felt in my heart of hearts that the gamers that loved it were going to be so happy. Yeah, they were going to learn about Mimir. They were going to learn about the Holdra brothers. They were going to learn. They were going to have, Faye. I mean, am I allowed to say it? Am I allowed to say her name?
She's
the game is out. Like
allowed.
Faye. I mean, this mystical handprint. Like I get so weepy when I hear "Memories of Mother" by Bear McCreary, and I see that handprint like a mother's love is like nothing else. And you get to see her. And then, you get to learn about Freya's backstory and you get to meet Odin and she gets to take her power back. Like I knew that they were going to appreciate how thoughtful the writers were. I had no doubt it was going to look like a freaking masterpiece painting. I mean, I can't even, the lighting alone is insane to me. Like how do you light a video game? I don't even know how they do it. I mean, then Roth's team, like the animations, the details, the veins in some of the characters' faces. I'm like, that's a vein. I'm sure of it. I
could go off about lighting in video games. It's extremely complicated. Like
how are they
so they literally put a light in. Like it's basically looks like a light bulb.
Okay.
But you can say what kind of light it is. Like if it's a blanket light, it would just light everything. Sometimes it's a light source, so you have to physically, basically in the engine, put a light inside of a lamp and then describe its intensity. But lighting is one of the most consuming things in a game. I always use the word expensive, but really it's memory intensive. Okay. So the more lights you have, the less of other shit you can have.
Interesting.
So lighting is a really, really complicated balance in game development. It's way harder than most people would think. So I appreciate that you were like, that seems hard.
Yes, I think I wept the first. I mean, I'm obviously like a big baby. I cry at everything, which is probably one of the reasons why I was able to have the emotional fragility that Freya required. Not that she's fragile, but just to be able to empathize. You know? But I remember in 2018 when we had our wrap party, I still didn't even know what I was in. Had no idea that the effect of this game, because now I understand it. Like I knew what it was like to act it out, and I know what it was like to be an actor. But now I'm thinking, oh my God, these players get to embody Kratos. It's not just sitting in a theater and relating this way. You're like physiologically relating, like becoming this person. And I walked in and it was great. We said, hi, everybody. This is so great. Oh yeah. What's going to happen? No idea. And all of a sudden, the characters like popped up on this huge screen. And I was like, holy shit, this is massive. So I kind of liked that I didn't have any preconceived ideas, especially in the first game, because it was all new. Yeah. So the second game, there was more anticipation because I was like, yeah, here it comes, baby. And I did a few photo shoots, sort of like Freya inspired photo shoots.
I saw, that's super cool.
With like the raven wings and stuff. Yeah. I wanted to really just embrace her fullness. And they gave me that in this game. They wrote it that way. And I feel like the fans have been embracing her complete transformation. They've seen her go through it all. And I've really appreciated that journey. So there was I can't wait to start interfacing with them. Yeah. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah. Just waiting for it. For God of War 2018, did you have any concept of how popular that game was going to be?
No.
So to you, it was just like, oh, I'm just doing this video game.
Yeah, I'm just in this video game. Yeah. And I was like, oh, there's Teal'c. Oh, I really liked him in Stargate. Yeah. And by the way, I mean, I tell this story a bit too. Like, I was convinced I was going to be fired after the first table read.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I'm sure they were like, look, I don't think they were ever going to fire me. I don't want to put that out there, but I think that I had a learning curve. In fact, I know I did, because I was sitting up against like this behemoth-sized man named Chris Judge, who's like, hello, like, boy, like, it was so, and it was like resonated everything. I'm like, and then I got Alistair with this Scottish brogue, and then you got Robert Craig doing his thing, and then you've got Alistair, who's like, I was like, oh wait, no, these guys really, they are voiceover actors.
Freya's the most normal, in a way.
There's a voice. Yeah, I found her. I had a dream about Han Solo.
Okay.
Did Corey ever tell you the story?
No.
So I wasn't sure if she was poised or regal. She was a goddess and a leader of the Vanir, after all. I mean, she is the preeminent goddess of Norse mythology?
Yeah.
Like, she basically is like all 10 Greek goddesses into one.
Yeah.
The one thing she's not is the goddess of wisdom. Clearly she's made some choices that are, come on, lady.
It's true.
Yeah. So those were big shoes to fill, but I was finding her. And Corey was so good with me with that. And Matt and Rich and the whole team. And
yeah, I really don't feel like when I'm talking to you, I don't think of Freya in a crazy way.
Yeah.
Like, naturally, you are very different.
Oh, cool.
Which, I mean, maybe you should be an actress. Have you thought about it?
I've been giving it some thought.
Yeah. Look into it.
Think about, well, thank you.
Maybe I could like find a connection.
Please help me out.
Yeah.
I need help. Clearly. No, but one day Corey was like, you know what it is? He's like, you got to add a little Han Solo into it. And I was like, oh. I went home, had my dinner, blah, blah, went to bed, dreamt of Han Solo that night. And like, there were some things that happened with Solo in my dream. Like, there was an integration period. And then I came back on set. I am not joking. Like, she dropped in.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a little Han Solo in there. Sprinkle.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, it's like she's got a roguish charm to her on top of everything else, which, yeah. I totally
She's been by herself for 180 years.
Yeah.
And I think she learned, whereas before it was like the leader of the Vanir, and then of course becoming a mother and a wife and all of that. And then it was like, there's a little bit of like, F off energy. Like when she's like, I'm still a god, go away.
Yeah, true.
She got there.
Yeah.
And I finally found her with a little Han Solo.
My next question was going to be, so for all of the characters that you've done, even outside of Freya, do you have a homework that you give yourself to make sure that you understand that voice? Like, does every character require a ton of effort? Are some of them more natural? Like, what's the process for you figuring out how they speak? Yeah,
that's a very specific question. So Freya, I found her voice. Once I found her sort of emotional center and her grounding, like honestly, like her like feet on the ground was when the voice got activated. And then, like some characters are a lot easier. Like, if I'm doing a comedy, because I've done a few of those, I do sort of play a lot of women who are a bit affected, and so sometimes there'll be a voice that'll come out. I played the mother of a death in Insidious Chapter 2, and that was not my voice coming through. I mean, she was a specter entity, and also just a very tortured woman who was torturing her young son, dressing him up like a little girl. So yeah, this is, I do have to find that voice. And again, I think I go back to, I've been doing yoga since 20. I'm a dancer. So a lot of it is like physical. And then the voice gets involved. I am very studious, and you can talk to anybody at Sony Santa Monica Studios of all the notes I would bring in. And I'm very nerdy like that. Like, I want to do the research, which is why I thought I'd get fired at the first table read, because I didn't even know what game I was in. Corey, how could you do that to me? We were literally... Everyone says you're a nice guy.
No, we should fire him.
Never heard of him.
Get rid of him.
Who? Never heard of him. Yeah, we like that joke. But I found out literally right before I walked through the doors that I was in God of War, and I still didn't even understand what that meant. I understood a little more what that meant, but I didn't understand like the scope.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the voice, the movement, the body, but a lot of it is also anchored in the backstory. So
yeah,
once I knew she was Freya, then of course I took to the Google verse. You know, back in the day we would get encyclopedias. It was very romantic. But now you just are like, so I was like Norse mythology. And of course I love mythologies because I grew up thinking I was already a fairy of like some capacity or some goddess. Yeah. So, and so I did all that research, and then I learned about some of her traumas. I'm always like, the way into a character, especially an emotional character, but even a character that can be hysterical, is to sort of like, what happened in that childhood house?
What's the defining moment?
What were the defining moments exactly? Was it just one? Maybe it was two.
Yeah.
What was the parent that they had the rub with? Was it both? Was it a brother? Like, and then of course, it's a lot of therapy to like get honest about my upbringing and what those pains are. Or, you know, sometimes you become the funny one in the family. Sometimes you become the victim in the family. Sometimes you're the hero of the family. And we play these roles. So who is this character? What was their backstory? And then how can I like infuse, you know, my experience into that?
You said you bring notes when you're studious. What are the notes? What are you bringing?
God, yeah. Again, Chris is just like, you know, I like, I basically printed out maybe like, I don't know, 30 pages from the internet on Norse mythology, on Freya. And it's interesting, the prose Edda or the Poetica Edda.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
The Edda.
The Edda.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because is it Freya with a J?
Yeah.
Is it Freya without a J? Is it Frigg? You know, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. And so I had to sift through a lot of that. I'm like, you guys, I'm confused, you know, because there's all these different, like, was she Odin's wife, Freya, Frigg, this, that, the other? And of course, Matt and Rich, like, you're not, like, they're basically one, they're like the brain of the universe. Like you put their, and then there's Corey. He's like, I don't know. There's like a cerebral cortex going
so many
on.
things. You're like, hey, Matt, quick question. And he's like, here you go.
Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, no, thank God for them. So yeah, there I was, little nerdy actress, like, ooh, I get to like do this research and really create this character, but based on this lore and mythology. How lovely. Yeah. And so I would just take the notes and then I would build from there. And then at the end of the day, you throw it all out, because then once it's like integrated in your body, at least for me, it's just about being truthful in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So what do I need from Kratos? What do I need from Atreus? What are they giving me in the moment? You know, because you can think, you can overthink. And of course I can do that because you can tell I'm like, you know, going a million miles an hour, but you can't anticipate what that living human being is going to give you in the moment.
Sure.
And if you can be open to it, that's like the magic stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I feel like that, if you're bogging yourself down in too much prepreparation, that could completely go out the window, right? Yeah.
I've learned the hard way sometimes.
Right.
I feel like I found a nice balance now in my life with that. At least I think I have in some recent experiences with my characters.
It's something that we all have to figure out in the real world as well.
Yeah.
To be in the moment is a challenge for sure, especially when everyone's got anxiety because the world is terrible.
It's a horrible place.
So off of that, this is a question that I love asking people, is like, do you have any advice for people who are interested in getting into voice acting or newcomer voice actors? Like, what are some mistakes maybe that you made early on that you've learned from, or something that you'd go back and tell yourself when you were first starting out as an actress? What would the thing you'd be like, Danielle, do this better, or stop doing this, or learn this? Is there any like tidbit regarding wisdom?
The first thing that just came to my gut was have your own back. That's coming through right now. I think it's because everyone has a place and everyone has a right to follow their dream.
Sure.
Their passion, their talent, nurture it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of going to school.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of learning your craft, studying those who are your heroes, your role models.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with people who truly want you to win. That's a biggie, because as an artist, we're already sensitive beings. We're human. We're not robots. So things hurt.
Yeah.
And it's a really competitive industry. And what I didn't know back then was how to have my own back, how to speak up for myself in situations, how to sometimes let go of friends and people that were not really there to see me win. Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's good advice in general. It's
just good life advice. So like, I can tell you, go to school, study, I mean, look at your setup here, like invest in yourself. Like if you want to be an actor and a voiceover actor, all of it, like you're constantly financially and time and energetically investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Be open to criticism, but also know that you have a point of view. You see?
Sure.
Because you can be so open to criticism where like you actually
lose yourself.
You completely lose yourself. Yeah. And yeah, we're insecure people. Like we're insecure because we're human and life can be scary.
I feel like there's a thing about actors specifically.
Yeah.
That what you do has to make people insecure, because so much of the job, again, I think people think acting is way easier than it is, that I now have a lot more perspective, even just doing this podcast. You get some sides, you read it, you make a character, you submit an audition, and you never even hear back.
That's it.
And they give you 2 fucking days. They don't tell you if there was something wrong with your performance. You're just giving it to people and they're discarding you like it doesn't matter. And then on the day, you have millions of people watching something that you're doing, and you're just constantly getting notes and feedback to build this whole. It just seems like I don't think it's that insecure people get into acting. It's that I think actors have to be insecure because it is. You have to be validated externally to do your job. Whereas like a lot of trades, you don't have to be externally validated. You don't need a director and all these other actors to care what you think. Like if you're doing
a dentist or a doctor. Yeah.
Because you really do have to be validated all the time. It just seems like a lot. Like,
it is a lot. That's why I think every just get a therapist. Absolutely
sure.
Get a therapist. Like I'm a woman of faith. So like, you know, if that makes sense for you, or something where you just feel like, hey, you know what? You're valuable no matter what the fuck happens.
Yeah.
Like you were put here for a reason. I'm like, I'm a Christian now, fucking off, you know, like, no, but it is true. It's like, you have to, that's why I said, have your own back. Like you're valuable no matter what. Now, guess what? You're going to go out there and put yourself out there. You're going to audition. You're going to get rejected. I've been rejected so many times, so much more than I've been validated.
It has to be, yeah.
The fact that Corey knew I was Freya, like he says within the first 30 seconds, is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle, because I didn't even know what I was auditioning for, but also too, because as an actor, you go into everything feeling like you said, just like you said, you're like, how would they dress? The hair, the makeup, you're getting memorized. Then you're sitting in traffic back in the day when you would go to the audition. But now you got to put yourself on tape. You got to pay for the tape. You got to edit it together. You're literally
you have to do 10 jobs. Also, social media is a huge thing now too. Like, I feel like they're like, oh, how many followers do you have? Like that. The fact that plays into it as well is like, you have to be a social media manager and marketing.
It's like, are you kidding me? Wouldn't it back in the day when it was just really about your talent and your work ethic, perhaps, right? But now there's so many other things go into it. Like, we had to give it to the influencer because she had more followers. Yep. But is she an actress? Mm-hmm. Just because you walk and talk doesn't make you an actor. That's and true. Just because you can pick up a pen and put a word on a paper doesn't make you a writer. There's a craft involved. Yeah. Now, that's not to say, who do you think you are? Like, I would never say that to someone.
Everyone get involved if you want to.
Yeah.
But I think the study thing is a huge one. Like, I do see people all the time ask for advice for acting, and the amount of people who are like, go to school, and people are like, but I don't want to do that. Other than that. Yeah. And you're like, no, go to school.
Right. Yeah. If you just want to be famous, then you can do that on Instagram.
You can do that on Pornhub, man. Just however you want. Go to school. You know?
That was not from me. No, but it's true. Listen, it is a shortcut. That is true. We jest, but you're right. I am a Gen Xer. I was raised in a generation where it was like, I think someone said the other day, like the Xers are grind culture. Sure. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what it was, just because instilled in us was just work ethic, like work hard, play hard, like you get the gain, mm-hmm. right? And again, there's that magic part, because like we all know that we're not ultimately in control. Sure. Like that's insanity. Like what makes you feel crazy is when you feel you can like white knuckle it. It just never works. Like there's I always call it, like, speaking of Freya, there's one wing of effort. And I can flap it till I'm blue in the face. Mm-hmm. But the other wing is the wing of grace. And that's the one that I don't have any control over. Mm-hmm. But if I'm aware to let that magic come through, to let that perfect timing of things come through, I have found it has given me a lot more peace of mind in my life.
Yeah, also a great tip. Get therapy.
Well, obviously I've done a lot. I mean, and I've made so many mistakes, sure.
We all do. It's fine.
But isn't that rich? Because you get to channel that into your character, whether you're writing it or doing the voiceover or whatever. So so have your own back, mental health, emotional health, your tribe of people.
I think that's a really good tip. My last question was going to be, we've spoken about a lot of, the struggles and challenges. Just what's your favorite thing about being an actor? What's the number one favorite thing?
Getting to express aspects of myself that I don't feel as liberated to do in real life what is it, IRL in real life? Just trying to be cool, like the
It
kids.
was very cool of you.
I didn't stumble at all on that one.
Very great delivery, super cool.
Wow,
Yeah,
I feel like I'm being pandered to. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get to play pretty powerful women, sometimes formidable. I always do try to find their vulnerability and their the flaw or the wound. I think it's really important. A lot of times, you can play what's on the page and you can be, it's like putting white on white, like you can just really bite into the words, but that's not quite likable. One of the things that I've enjoyed a lot is by playing these, I call them complex women, women with complexities. I don't think that they're heroes or villains, but you never approach a character. You can hear anybody, like, you don't, Christopher Waltz, like, right. Like in Inglourious Basterds, like you're not approaching a character like you're the villain. You are the hero of the story. And sometimes that means you are a psychopath, like depending on what the character is, but like, why is that person that way? And so the short version is the psychology behind it all. And then the ability for me to exercise aspects of myself that I didn't necessarily feel like were safe to express in my own life.
For sure. Yeah. You almost get to have like a little bit of therapy as a job.
A little therapy.
Writing is super simple.
And some artistic lessons. Yeah. And writing, oh my God, writing is, first of all, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do.
It's not easy.
But it's also so empowering because you are the god of that universe.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a small follow-up question, even though I said I wouldn't.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So does all of the, digging into trauma and the where the characters come from, do you look at people in your real life differently? Like, do you ever meet somebody and think about them in terms of like
100%
character? Interesting.
I will tell you that there's an empathy. Actions can be heinous. Sometimes we don't like actions that hurt other people. But when your life is studying characters and you got to understand why you're saying this. Now, of course, you're saying it because the writer wrote it, but you have to understand as a character, like, why am I saying that? So sometimes someone can be a real dick and you're like, God, I wonder what his dad was like to him.
I do it all the time as a writer too.
Yeah. I wonder what that was like. Sometimes you don't like the behavior, but that you can have a little compassion sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty valuable.
It's a great note to end on. Have a little compassion sometimes.
Just a little compassion.
The Aldous Huxley, famous writer, he wrote Brave New World, is probably the one he's most famous for. He said he was trying his whole life to figure out what the meaning of life was. And then he got to the end of his life and he figured it out. He was like 70 and he was like, it's embarrassing. The meaning of life is embarrassing, but I figured it out. Be a little kinder. That's what he thought the meaning of life was. Just be a little kinder. That's it. It was like, okay, that's what he figured out. This is a guy who was like nominated for various like humanitarian awards and wrote 70 books, super famous. Be a little kinder. That's it.
That's a beautiful note
Isn't
to
it?
go out on.
Be a little kinder. Anyway, thank you for joining me, Danielle. Where can people find you? It's pretty easy. It's always at Danielle Bisutti. There's that's not a very common last name, so I didn't have to put a 1 or a 2 or a symbol. Social media privilege. Yeah, right. There aren't a lot of Bisuttis out there, but and I'd love to interface with you there. And thank you to the fans who love this game and who have in particular been really supportive of Freya and her journey. Like, it means so much. Awesome. I will leave a link in the description so you can check out Danielle, talk about Freya and how much you love her, as we all do, of course. Thank you. See you all next time. Bye. Pleasure.